will meet virtually in red bold letters. The
Well,
first
I
sentence,
read all the minutes and everything, but I didn't read that page.
the first page.
So I've slapped my hands.
I just want to bring it to your attention.
Thank you.
This is a guy who used to fly airplanes very fast for a living and survived to tell about it.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Chair, we are now live and ready to go.
Okay, great. We're going to call the Planning Commission to order this November 3rd, 2021. If staff could call roll, please.
Ryan Pearson,
Here.
Lynn Larson,
Here.
Brian Parsons,
Here.
Connie Coleman Lackady,
Present.
Paul Wegman,
President.
Philip Combs is absent at this time. Mr. Don Daniels,
Present.
you have quorum.
Thank you so much. Before us, commissioners, we have the minutes of October 20th, 2021. Looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as moved.
Okay, Mr. Wegman made a motion and Mr. Larson made a second. Any changes or discussion regarding the minutes? Hearing or seeing none. All those in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing
Aye.
none. Abstentions? Hearing none. The minutes passed as written. I thank you. Ms. Tiffany, is there any changes to our agenda?
No, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. At this time, I'll open up public comment. Anyone wishing to speak before our commissioners on any topic have the opportunity to speak to us. Comments. Is there anyone signed up for public comment?
Ms. Devereaux, did you have anybody sign in or express the desire to provide comment tonight?
I did not receive anything.
Okay, great.
And then-
So go ahead.
I'm sorry, there's no one logged in either to be part of public comment.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. So at this time, we'll close the public comment period. We'll move to number 6. We do not have a public hearing tonight, so we move right to number 7, unfinished business. I'm going to continue our discussion on the 5-year energy and climate change implementation plan. And I believe it goes to Mr. Buer.
Correct.
Thank you, Don. But before we get into the discussion, I think it might be a good time for Mr. Parsons to introduce himself.
Well, thank you, Mr. Buer. I have that written down right here, and I was going to do that right away. But
It was written in red too, wasn't it?
it was right at the top. A black. Thanks, Paul. No, Mr. Parson, welcome. Like I mentioned, and go ahead and tell us just a little bit about Mr. Parson and why the desire to apply for this prestige position.
Well, I can already tell I'm in trouble with Mr. Wegman down there with some of his comments, so we should be in good shape. So, no, happy to join the board, the commission, very excited to do it. A little background on myself is I'm a Washington native, spent most of my time in Seattle, moved to Lakewood about a year ago, and really that was a homecoming of sorts. My wife grew up in Lakewood. Her grandmother, T.D.M. Holt, was part of the incorporation of Lakewood, so the family really has felt that civic duty of being a part of the community, and really it's rubbed off of me, especially being a full-time resident here the last year and knowing that I want to be here for the rest of our time. And so really getting to know the city and seeing all it has to offer, I thought, what kind of skills can I offer? Being a CPA, I can really help out with the fiscal side of things. I can help out with actually understanding code and law with a lot of what we deal with on the IRS side. And I'm a small business owner. I own a few buildings and kind of understand some of the processes that happen with folks with small businesses trying to open in communities and some of the challenges that they have. So I thought with that background, it might be helpful to be a part of this commission. And after watching a few of the prior ones and seeing what the commission does, I thought it'd be great to be a part of it. So excited to be here, see how it can help.
Great. Well, thank you so much and welcome aboard.
Hey, can I just ask one question? Are you a Husky or a Cougar?
So I went to Western Washington.
Okay.
So
All right.
I'm
Safe.
purposely not answering your question.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay, Mr. Buer, take it away.
Unmute yourself, Dave.
Sorry about that.
It's all right.
I thought I would start out by just kind of reviewing where we're at in the process. Basically, it's been a request by the Planning Commission to hone down the number of climate change action programs from 89 to a lesser number. And we went through an exercise to do that. I think we're down to 17 now from that number. And just to review with the group, I'd ask that the members choose 10 items. Almost all of you did, although we had 2 cheaters. I want to report that Mr. Daniels couldn't do the assignment. I think he actually did 12. And then Mr. Larson got ahead of himself and started providing written commentary, which I'm ignoring now. But later in, as we go through this, we will bring that forward. So just hold on. You're about 3 steps ahead of everybody else. And I want to keep everybody on the same level so that we can progress and we all understand where we're at.
It's all good.
So I compiled everything in a table form, which the commission received.
Would you like me to share that, Mr. Buer?
Yes.
Okay.
And so we had one action item, number 1, to develop a 5-year plan for reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And this received 5 votes. It also actually incorporates other work items, performing an environmental justice assessment, which we're going to talk a little bit about maybe later. A greenhouse gas inventory and forecast. We have done one for 2020. And Google was kind enough to do one for us in 2021. Emissions reduction targets is going to be a bit of a challenge, but it's something that we need to take a look at. Carbon sequestration as well. And a program for monitoring and reporting out implementation. So that was number 1, which received 5 votes. Then we had 4 action items that received 3 votes. Update the city's non-motorized transportation plan. As feasible and appropriate, the city would require new development and redevelopment, provide pedestrian connections. Includes connections between retail, living and working spaces, etc. I won't read it all. We already do that, but it's nice that we go ahead and affirm what we're already doing. The third one was develop plans for key commercial corridors. We have started that in some sections of the city, and there's a process underway. It's very preliminary at this stage to actually begin the process on South Tacoma Way. Lastly, to continue to incentivize mixed use and infill development. Then there were 12 actions that received 2 votes. I won't read them all. You have the materials, but it goes through and list those. One that's interesting that I think has considerable weight is number 19, collaboration with the county, UP, Town of Steilacoom, Tacoma, WashDOT. And I forgot to mention DuPont, not only on regional commuter trail links, but also some way of doing some sort of interlocal agreement so that we're all working together on developing our own set of climate change priorities. Implement water conservation efforts for households, number 43. Some of these we're already doing. If we go a little bit lower, enforce the building code for electric vehicle charging infrastructure. That was something, well, it says 2018. It was actually introduced in 2021. It was late because of the pandemic. And related to this is school-based programs to integrate nutrition, gardening, etc., and healthy food choices into the environmental benefits of urban agriculture. Then there were 11 actions that received 1 vote and 30 actions that received 0 votes. So of the 89 action items, 17 received 2 or more votes. And so on that basis, I sort of discounted us on the 1 votes and the 0 votes. So tonight, that's where we're standing. And so the next step, and this is a big one, is first how to address our latecomer, Mr. Parsons. Because he did not participate in this exercise, but I believe it's important that he do so. And if the commission does not object, I would suggest that Mr. Parsons go ahead and provide his selection of 10 and forward that to me so that we can complete the record. I don't think that's going to have a material change on the outcome. It may add a few more items instead of 17, maybe perhaps 20. But if Mr. Parsons could perform that, then I could go ahead and finish this assignment. And is that something that the remainder of the commission agrees with?
I do.
Yeah, that should be, that's fine with myself. I think that would bring them up to speed a little bit more, some reading material, and absolutely.
Okay.
And now he's kind of seen a little bit what we've done already. So if you can try and be unbiased as you look at that.
Yeah. Well, luckily I have my 10 down. Mr. Beaver gave me a head start on this, saying that we'd potentially be requesting it. So I will send that along. I think I have 2 that were not voted for previously, so I don't think we have made the list too much bigger, but I will share that and get that over.
Thank you.
Okay. So really this evening, I'm really into the step 2 process, which is now that you've seen the results, does anyone want to comment on what they've seen? Are you okay with discounting the 0s and the 1s for now? And lastly, does anyone want to change their selections? If so, now's the time. Now we're going to go through this re-examination several times. So this will not be the first time I will ask this question.
Mm-hmm.
So, Mr. Chair, I'll turn it back to you to see if anyone wants to change their vote.
Thank you.
How does
So
they
I
have
appreciate that. So does anyone have any comments or changes at this time after reading some of the reviews? I don't see Mr. Pearson. How about that first? Go ahead.
Yep. I don't need to change any of them, but there are 5 that are have 3 or more votes. So I feel like those ones would be kind of locked in, and then that would really, leave us with like 12 that we would have to decide on for the remaining 5.
Okay.
It seems pretty straightforward to me.
That makes sense.
Mr. Wagaman?
I agree with Ryan. I think that's good. And he's an engineer, not even an accountant. So that's really good.
Okay. And Mr. Larson, you said that as well, as in other words, just taking the 5 and the 3 votes is what you're proposing, and throwing the, so 5 and 3 is 8, and then the 2 votes, or what? I didn't understand.
Oh, I thought that there was a 1 5 vote, and then there was like 4 that we had 3 on.
3.
So
I
there
see
was
what you mean. Yeah.
I think that was, I could be wrong, but I thought that was.
Mr. Daniels, what Mr. Pearson's suggesting is that we lock in
Yeah.
1, 18, 23. And if typically we'll go down a little bit lower.
Yeah.
54 and 53. So those become firm.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
So if we're all good, and Mr. Parsons is going to provide me his list of 10, I will take the full list and then begin examining those 17 or say 20, whatever they might be, based upon time frame, effort, and need.
Okay.
And on time frame, I will be examining them based on short-term, less than 1 year, medium, between 1 and 3 years, long-term, 3+ years. And then effort, low is implemented at no or nominal cost, which I think some of these can be.
Mm-hmm.
Medium may require some funding and some partner-driven implementation. And high, you're going to have to hire consultants, do capital projects, or you're going to have to bring forward, endorse some sort of additional legislation. I will tell you that sequestration is one of those items. I think it needs to be done, but we will get some more information on that a little bit later. Sequestration, you can do it using volunteers or you can use it doing consultants. But I think there's a lot of stored carbon in Lakewood. And I'm looking at this in the future so that when the state comes in and says you have to reduce your carbon footprint, we can already say we have X number of carbon stored through our open space regulations, tree preservation, and so forth. So I'm sort of getting us into a position where we can have credits at some future date.
Makes a lot of sense.
FYI.
Yeah, good. Any comments on Mr. Buer's statements he just made?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I know the Port of Tacoma and ports do something similar to that. They have credits for doing like remediation and shoreline projects. And so they can do a bunch of different, remediation of the shoreline and then build up, however many credits they need to put in some new infrastructure on the water. So yeah, I think if we can be forward thinking about that and start kind of building up a bank of credits, that would kind of allow us a little bit of freedom in the future.
There's a third category called need, and it's going to be into 3 areas. One is low, which is nice to have strategies without significant urgency. Medium addresses important needs and warrants some urgency. And high, highest priority and most urgent issues in the region. So each one of those 17 or so numbers that we've chosen is going to be analyzed based upon these 3 categories. So you're going to get another table, and you're going to be able to take a look at those 17 to 20 and see how they all frame themselves and what patterns are out there. And then the commission will be given another opportunity to review that and see if they agree or not.
Wow. That's sounds like a heavy load on staff right there.
Well, what else is new? But, I've been working on this whole climate change for the last 18 months, so it may not be that difficult for me.
Yeah.
I do want to let you know that my intention is to bring this back to you on the 17th.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Wow, okay.
As long as Mr. Parsons provides his information timely.
Yeah.
Which I
The
assume.
email is already sent, so it's there.
Yes, Mr. Larson.
Back to the point, Ryan, I was glad to hear you make it about the Port of Tacoma. We've had a lot of trouble with the Port of Tacoma going into and getting them to actually deal with those credits that they've accomplished. They don't seem to have a mechanism by which one can actually accomplish the use of those credits, at least in the private industry. And so, Dave, I think with that thought of building a credit bank and staying ahead of the game with the state of Washington and their requirements and that kind of thing, if we have as a background thought how the credits are going to be used mechanically, so you've got kind of a platform in your back pocket that allows for the assimilation of those credits, and I think that would be helpful going on. Just
one of the things I'm looking at is if we can create an economic model where private property owners can do their own sequestration studies. And a good example is the town center. I can do a sequestration study on my own on the town center based upon their current landscaping plans and the types of trees and the age of the trees. I think they would be surprised at the sequestration and the carbon that they have, carbon credits they potentially have that they're not even aware of.
right.
So this is going to be a part of the tree preservation program that we're working on right now. Tree preservation, and I'm going to say it this way, is not about Gary Oaks per se. It is about climate change and environmental justice. We will address Gary Oaks, but the bigger issues are climate change and environmental justice. And you'll see this in future reports. So just stay tuned.
Okay.
So
Go ahead, Connie. Did you have any comments? Nope. Okay, Mr. Buer, go ahead.
Okay, so on the 17th, I'll come back with this new table And it will try to put into categories these 17 or 20 action items and how they all fit or don't. And then the commission will have another opportunity to review those and to see how it works. Now, I think you'll be close at this point, and I may ask you to start prioritizing these on that meeting night, either that or December 1st.
Okay,
And it may require you to move it on to the 1st. That's fine. But I think you'll be able to be closer to prioritizing your work plan items. So after that, on December 1st, assuming that you have prioritized your work plan items, I'm going to go back and have you take a look at all the other 79 items we passed up. And I think what you will find, and people are laughing at me,
Yep.
I think what you will find is there are patterns.
Yep.
And there are subcategories and things that are subtasks that tie in directly to the 17 or 20 that you've chosen.
Already see that. I totally agree with you. We will see that.
So you're going to see that pattern, and you're going to have a very detailed work plan, not just for 2 years, but you may very well have something for 5.
Yep.
Okay. So once that's done on the 1st, pat yourselves on the back because you've made significant progress. Okay. Then what happens is we take a break, because I'm not requesting that we hold a meeting, the second meeting in December. But come January, I think it's January the 3rd. Hold on a second.
January 5th.
January 5th, we'll hold a public hearing.
okay,
And we'll ask the public to comment on your program. Then closing the public hearing, I'm going to ask for the commission to pass a recommendation in the form of a resolution on to the city council. And then the city council will review, and I think will probably accept your work plan items based upon the process that we've gone through to get to this point. Now, if all that works out and the city approves the biennium budget come July of 2022, we hire a climate change program manager. And then this assignment gets off my back a little bit.
Yeah.
And then moves on to another person that will follow through with the work plan.
awesome.
So that's what it looks like.
Okay,
And it sort of fits within everything else the city council's doing. If that's acceptable to the commission, that's how we'll continue to move forward.
yep. Any comments? Connie, did you have a comment?
I was just going to say, sounds good to me.
Okay, great. Thank you, Connie. Anyone else? I think we've digested and try to stay on the timeline. Absolutely. So there will be required some more homework after the 17th. Between now and the 17th, when Mr. Buer sends out the package, there will be that graphs and charts that he's referring to. So there will be additional homework coming up prior to the new year.
Are we being asked to prioritize the 17 before the 17th?
No, we won't start prioritizing until on the 17th, Mr. Wagaman.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you don't want us to try and do that ahead of time before that meeting?
Because you need to work together as a group to make your final determinations. Now, each one of you can develop your own prioritizations prior to the meeting, that's fine.
Yeah.
But they may not look exactly the same.
Right. Yeah, Mr. Larson, right? I'm sorry, Mr. Larson, on the instead of just picking 10, you had some additional comments. You, like Mr. Buer said, added additional comments but that's fine. You've already done some of your research, so that's good. We'll move forward.
I just felt it appropriate to share my thinking as to why I chose what I chose. And
we understand. Yep, it's all good. Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Buer. Anything else on that subject?
Not on that subject, but when we get to item 9, there's a couple of things I would like to bring to the commission's attention.
Well, absolutely. Why don't you continue on right now? Item 9.
City council updates. On Monday night, I presented a scope of work to the city council on amending the tree preservation code. That's coming back for adoption on November the 15th. Basically, what will happen is most likely they're going to create an ad hoc committee. And this ad hoc committee will take the lead on developing policy and a revised code for tree preservation. Right now, we're looking at hiring Burke Consulting to perform that work along with a sub-consultant. They have worked with the city before on numerous topics and have worked on trees and forest management practices before. So I think we have a good program coming forward. This committee will then make recommendations. Those recommendations will be forwarded to the Parks Board for their comment, then to the Planning Commission for your comment, and you'll probably hold a public hearing on it.
Okay.
And then make a recommendation, and then move on to the city council. We originally had talked about having this completed by October 2022. It appeared that the city council would like to accelerate that. So we're looking at a possible date of back to the council in August of 2022. So we'll see. That means we're going to have to put the pedal to the metal on this. The consultant will be working on the tree preservation, and Tiffany Spear will be working on the comprehensive plan amendments, and we'll separate out the tree preservation from the comp plan amendment process.
Oh, great, great.
So that's moving forward. We have a proposal for a development agreement, which is where some individual wants to build affordable housing, and in the process wants to revise or amend our current code provisions in an effort to put in more housing units, reduce parking, in order to have a higher number of housing units that are affordable. To do that, it requires a public hearing and a recommendation by the Planning Commission and action by the City Council. On the 17th, you'll get a report on how this process works. I think it's going to be done by Courtney Brunell, and Tiffany shaking her head yes, and she'll explain what the process is so you don't walk into this cold. And then on December the 1st, you would hold the public hearing. And I will be asking if the commission is comfortable with it at that time to make a recommendation to the city council. There's some timing issues that are significant. However, if you have a large group of people who are opposed to this, you may have to slow it down, in which case it'll get scheduled to January. But just letting you know, this is coming forward.
Okay, any other updates? Oh, go ahead, Mr. Orson.
How soon are we going to be able to see that, Dave, so we can read it and try to get our arms around it?
I think Courtney, well, we're having some, that's a hard question for me to answer because the attorney representing the developer disagrees on the process. And the city attorney says we need to do it this way, step A, and the attorney for the private developer is saying, no, you should be able to do it step B. So I'm waiting for the lawyers to complete their arguments and see if we can find some common ground, and then we can move forward. I'm hoping that we have a meeting coming this Thursday in which we can resolve this and we'll move it forward.
Okay.
If not, then they're going to have to file for LUPA action or something else.
Just the sooner the better, so we can.
Yeah, the sooner the better.
our
That's
arms
what's
around it.
important here. We're getting
Great.
stuck in process, and that's unfortunate.
Yeah, that's frustrating.
Oh, we had some discussion on that subject. James Guerrero did that presentation a couple months ago, or maybe more than that now, about reducing parking requirements so that we can have more livable space. And and that really made a lot of sense. So it's something we need to look at. However, I've been in some areas, not in our city per se, where there's just very limited parking. And so I can't get my handyman truck parked to even go help fix something in a place. So how do we balance that out? So,
Well, it's coming back for further discussion in 2022 because we had two multifamily tax exemption projects being proposed in the Lakewood Station sub-area plan. And they had proposed parking consistent with the standards that we developed and approved, and the council didn't like it. And they made him go back and amend the parking and provide additional parking. And the reason we were able to get away with it, the project's vested prior to the adoption of the sub-area plan. So we have the sub-area plan that says one thing, the sub-area plan that was recommended by the Planning Commission that says we are going to reduce parking. And we have the city council members, some city council members saying, not so fast. We want to take a revisit this. So you're going to be taking a look at that as a part of the comprehensive plan amendment process in 2022, because we cannot continue to have this inconsistency in how we move forward with parking in the future.
Well, staff have those inconsistencies, isn't it?
What, Mr. Wageman, restate?
I said it's tough on the staff when you have inconsistencies in their policy, because they're the people that they shoot bullets at, right? So anyhow.
Well, it's tough on the public too, but
Yeah.
but one thing that we do have in Lakewood is JBLM, and it throws a lot of parking ratios off because you have multiple GIs living together in a two-bedroom apartment. You might have 4 guys living in an apartment, and so you got 4 vehicles instead of 1.5 per code, and so there's that skeleton in the closet that you have to deal with on a code standpoint. I don't exactly know how we do it, quite frankly. I've been building for a lot of years. So there are some legitimate challenges that are aboard with that.
Well, neither myself or Tiffany like being stuck in the middle.
No, I don't blame you.
Yeah.
So we want this resolved because it's not good for us and it's not good for the public and it's poor public policy.
Yep, agreed.
Particularly if you say you're going to do it and you go, well, wait just a minute. This is not what I expected.
Totally agree.
And that's after we had extensive discussions on parking requirements, both at the commission level and council level.
Absolutely. Okay. So, and no other updates in from staff?
Not that I
Just
can
really,
see.
Oh, go
sorry,
ahead,
Mr.
Tiffany.
Mr. Chair, just to let you know that the American Rescue Plan Act program continues to move forward. The council approved some initial expenditures and then also approved the creation of the program that we're going to use to let organizations apply for the remaining funds. They're about half of the money that Lakewood received has been allocated. So you'll see some of that in press releases and on our website once we get going with the program. If you recall, it's about $13.5 million that the city received. And then the strategic position the city council took was to say, we don't want to do things that other jurisdictions or governments that have gotten a lot more money than us are doing as well. We're going to do the stuff that fills the gaps and the things that those other funds can't be used for. So that's the way the council has allocated funds to date and will continue to do so going forward. The other thing I would say, just a heads up, I know you've already talked tonight about what's going to happen November 17th and the 1st of December. As Mr. Brewer said on the 1st, it sounds like there's going to be the Gravelly Lake 55 development agreement discussion, public hearing, and possible action. There'll be the energy and climate change discussion, and then the introduction of the tree preservation program. The 15th, as he mentioned, will be no meeting, so happy holidays. And then we will get back into planning commission mode the first Wednesday, which is January 5th of next year. So just plan ahead, finish your celebrations to where you can recover and be here on the 5th.
Right on, sounds good. Any reports or comments from fellow commissioners? Don't see any hand waving. I do have a comment, maybe a clarification. Ms. Spear, is the Comfort Inn on Hosmer. Can you just, I see conflicting sometimes. I don't know if it's conflicting the way I'm interpreting, but is that a City of Lakewood purchase?
In part. What happened was Tacoma and Pierce County are both putting $5 million toward the purchase, and Lakewood put $1 million toward the purchase. So it's located right on the edge of where all 3 of those jurisdictions meet. And Lakewood decided to go ahead and use some of its ARPA funds for that in order to reserve beds for Lakewood individuals on a daily basis. So put in about 10% of the purchase price. We've got 10% of the beds reserved. And that'll be for the first 2 years that it operates, because that's the time frame it's supposed to be an emergency shelter. Beyond that, it's going to become permanent supportive housing. So emergency shelter operations will cease, and it will be set aside permanently for whether it's mental health issues, whether it's whatever, they need that permanent supportive type of housing, deep subsidies, and lots of social services needed. That will become the permanent use of that property. But for 2 years, yes, Lakewood will now have a 10% of the bed capacity every night for customers or clients.
But the property sits on City of Tacoma, or?
Yes.
In the city of Tacoma. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. I got that all. I says, geez, is it City of Tacoma? Then I see Lakewood, purchasing, and so
Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify. Thank you so much.
If I can add a little bit more
Yes.
to that discussion, we just set aside money for beds. We are not involved in the operational aspects of the
Great.
facility.
Smart.
Yeah.
One of the things about that is that the 2-year period, I'm wondering whether there can be some flexibility around that, because what we have here is a beautiful trial balloon to see how this kind of entity can serve this huge need in the community, to get homeless people off the streets and to get them managed through crises. Quite frankly, I don't see the conversion to permanent supportive housing that soon, because of the enormity of the problem. So, but at a very minimum, it's going to give us a look that we can see how this is going to fit. And I think it's money well spent. And I'm glad that we're caring for our citizens as well.
Great. Thank you.
There's been some initial city council discussion about that, Mr. Larson, where people are saying, yes, this is good for now, but it goes away in 2 years. And so what happens then? And then if you couple that with the results of the county's point in time count from 2021, where, if you're not already aware, that's the process by which they go out throughout the county on one night in January and try to count the number of people who are homeless.
Right.
In that process, in the most recent one, they identified, or I should say people identified the fact 327 of them said that their last mailing address was in Lakewood. And as of now, there's less than 20 beds available for emergency shelter within the city. The city uses shelters in Tacoma right now, and that will probably continue, but it is something that the city council is aware of, and they'll probably continue that discussion going forward.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Wagaman?
Yeah, when I was reading about this Comfort Inn thing, they're allowed to take their pets in there too? I
believe so, yeah.
Mhm.
Oh,
Yep.
it just, having moved people out of places and trying to get rid of furniture, once you got pet hair on stuff, because of allergies and all those kind of things, I don't know if that's really a wise decision. Is there another way we could team up? I guess we're not managing it, so it's not our fault.
Yep.
But if we could have the animal shelter be a place to, stash the animals while they're staying there and then link them back up afterwards.
The animal shelter is not equipped to do that.
Yeah. So Mr. Buer did make a nice comment, is we're not managing it, and we just have the 10% of the space. And however they manage it, there is some input though, citizens input. I'm sure you could address the county and the city, whoever is that deemed to manage it, and have those comments forward there. Mr. Buer.
The entity that's going to own this and operate is called Lehigh, which is the Low Income Housing Institute. They have similar facilities in Seattle. So I do believe that they know how to do this.
Right.
There have been some initial commentary about what do you do with overflow, and how do you manage the parking lot. Some of the city's concerns is we do not want people coming towards Lake when the facility is full.
There
So-
is a community meeting for Lehigh about Comfort Inn on Monday, November 22nd. And I believe the start time is 6 p.m. I'll send you all the flyer that I received for that today, just so you've got it.
Good
Great.
to know.
Great.
But
Thank you.
they've been good to work with. They've been very, very helpful. And I've been impressed so far by what I've seen.
Good.
Great. Well, yep.
The new
any
mayor
other-
of, the new mayor of Gig Harbor, she's got a program too, where they're working with tenants to, or landowners that have rental properties to house homeless people in too. So she's got some very interesting ideas that, you know, we'll look at sometime in the future.
Great. Seeing or hearing no other closing comments, I believe we can call the meeting adjourned. Thank you so much. We'll see everyone on the 17th.
Welcome aboard, Brian. Look forward to meeting you in
Yep.
person.
Yeah, all
Appreciate
right.
it. Thank you. Good to meet everybody.
Yep, thank you, Brian.
Good night, all.